You know, I'd like to be a one-take wonder, but sometimes you do have to start over. But let me start this statement over because honestly, I think it's important that everybody hears it clearly. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's come out this morning. It's incredible to see this show of unity, especially when we have such a crisis at hand. I want to acknowledge all of our partners that have come here today, including our colleagues from Benton County, our elected officials, and our criminal justice staffs from around the region. I want to thank all of our state lawmakers who have made it out here this morning. They tell me that they're ready to get to work. Governor Inslee, thank you for the conversation that we recently had to solve this problem. I appreciate how receptive you were with coming up with solutions. Really appreciate that. I'm not here to blame anybody how we got here or to call anybody out. I'm here to call everyone across this state to action. And let's start working together on this issue. This isn't a Republican or Democratic issue. It's not an independent issue. This is a problem that's affecting all of us. The system, it just simply isn't working anymore, and we need to work together to get this fixed. Cities, counties, state legislators, judges, and the Supreme Court need to start working together to get this solved. It's time to stop pointing fingers and blaming each other how we got here. Let's stop fighting once again and fix the problem. Thank you to the media for covering this story. Cameron, thank you for your hard work on this story. You've brought a lot of things to light recently in just the past few days. Already in Franklin County, we've had to cut bail of an accused rapist because we have a lack of attorneys here. In another case, a man suspected of stealing a car was released from jail to buy time for an attorney to be appointed. We simply can't have this anymore. The fiscal impacts for Franklin County, they will be extreme. We are looking at potentially having to use more than $500,000 in ARPA funding just to keep our system sustainable. In closing, once again, I want to thank everybody in this room, our partners from Benton and Franklin counties, our neighboring cities, for your efforts to make public aware of this crisis and the willingness to create a path to recovery. So thank you again for being here today. So the way we're going to handle this is we're going to break it up essentially into Franklin County is going to speak first, then our partners from Benton County are going to speak, and then really fortunate to have two senators here, Senator Benke and Senator Nikki Torres, that are here to support us. So once again, I'm Mike Gonzalez. Thank you for watching on YouTube, and thank you everybody for being a part of this. So I'd like to welcome Commissioner Clint Didier.
Thank you, Mike, and good morning. We are here this morning to address the public with a very serious problem. For the last few years, there's been a notable upswing in the cost and caseload of public defense expenditures. The recent transfer by Benton County of $1 million is only a Band-Aid approach to cover these unmandated costs. Franklin County, as have most counties in the state, have made a good faith effort to meet the fundamental constitutional right to defense. However, unfunded mandates associated with public defense is the cause of our problems, and the solution should not be found at the county, but at the state level. And at this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to our OPD. I want to say Colonel Sanders, but it's Mr. Larry Ziegler. Mr. Ziegler.
I think Frank Janney and I are probably the two senior people in the business here today. Frank and I started out like 80, 81. We were both public defenders then. He's a prosecutor now, senior prosecutor. And the first thing I'd tell you is even after 40 plus years in the business, I sure don't have all the answers. I'm aware of what the problems are because I have to deal with them every day. I agree with the introductory comment. The solution for this problem is going to have to be found at the state level. I don't think the counties and cities more than likely have enough money to cover what's going to be entailed here. I've been telling the county commissioners in the 7 years I've been here, from year one, I told them that you need to be very careful what you do with this system, because the public defense side of the equation can literally eat up your whole budget if it's not properly managed. There's almost no limit to what will be asked or demanded to supposedly get yourself up to standards that meet the state. And that's always been a problem. There's a fundamental mismatch between what the west side thinks is necessary and what the east side thinks is necessary. And I'm sure the people that are in the state legislature and the state senate know exactly what I'm talking about. It's easy to tell the counties, just spend it. And if you don't spend it, well, and if you're not going to get up to the level we think you should be at, there's something wrong with you, not with us. But you can't run a business that way. You can't run a county that way or a city that way. I think in large part, I tell everybody, if this were a private corporation, the board of directors would probably have been shown the door a long time ago, because incrementally, we've just allowed this thing with Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid, and now we're looking at something that appears to be almost insurmountable. I certainly don't fault Benton County for the transfer of $1 million. I wished I had $1 million to match them. But one of the problems we have here is Benton and Franklin County abut each other. The only thing that separates us is a couple of bridges. And we both have to recruit from the same labor pool. Well, if somebody's got $1 million to throw at it, and I don't have that kind of money to throw at it, and they can pay their people more money, where do you think they're going to go to work? That's just common sense. And we've reached a point where I don't know that Franklin County can continue to run in tandem with Benton County. I don't know if we have that kind of money. My gut feeling is we probably don't. But my own feeling is we've got a fundamental problem on the west side of the mountains. It involves all three branches of our government. When the state office of OPD was first formed over 25 years ago, I went to a seminar in Seattle where the director, who's since retired, one of the married defense lawyers in the audience said, "Hey, I've got a wife and 2 kids. Is there going to be any benefit to my staying in this system?" And at that time, the director told us, "Believe us, it's all coming soon. We'll have a uniform public defense system in the state of Washington. Everybody will be working basically for the state. We'll provide you with all the support staff you need. You're going to get medical and dental for your children. You're going to be on the pension system." Well, it never happened because it was too easy to do Band-Aids with the contract system. And it worked for a while. But I think now we've worked ourselves into a corner that's going to be very hard, if not impossible, for a lot of counties. And I suspect a lot of the smaller counties that are smaller than Franklin are going to be in worse shape than us when it comes to trying to find the money to stay up with this constant chase. So that's really about all I have to offer this morning. I don't know what else to tell you. Who said? Mike. You just talked about the one fellow that got released on the car charge yesterday. Well, he got arrested again last night. And so he's on a 72-hour hold now on a possible burglary charge. So that's how fast the turnaround is. My own personal problem in terms of the office, in terms of staffing, I'm probably going to lose my only staff attorney. On Monday is going to do his final interview with Eric's. He'll be the new director of OPD over on the Benton side. So instead of 3, I'll have 2 to handle felonies. And I'll be up against a prosecutor's office that can field 8 to 10 deputy prosecutors against my 2. So there's a mismatch there. I mean, facially, it's almost indefensible, those kind of numbers. And that's what we're trying to do here, is the best we can with what we've got. And that's really all I have to offer.
What we'll do, we can do some Q&A for the media afterwards. I did want to bring up Daniel Stovern from the prosecutor's office. I wanted to let folks know that Sean Sant is actually out of town on some training, but Frank Jenny is also here from the prosecutor's office to have a presence. So Sean wanted to be here, but certainly in good hands with Daniel and wanted to bring him up.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. The current crisis confronting our legal system has its roots in the mandates that came from the governor's office and the state Supreme Court during the pandemic, and has been exacerbated by a persistent labor shortage in the legal market that affects not just the Office of Public Defense, but also prosecutors' offices across the state. Cases piled up for years while our local courts were prohibited from performing their normal function, and cases are now going to trial, but large backlogs persist. Despite these challenges, our office remains committed to prosecuting crime in Franklin County. We will seek to direct resources efficiently so that violent criminals are held accountable while exploring other options for nonviolent cases. I know we've talked about a couple of people who've been released recently. I think it's important context to know that Judge Ruff on Tuesday, when lowering the bail on the gentleman who stands accused of rape, did not lower bail in the case in which he stands accused of rape. He's still being held on $250,000 bail. He had a separate older burglary 2 case where he had not yet been appointed an attorney. Just shows some of the triage that has to be done by our judicial system. Burglary case might not get an attorney as quickly as a rape case. So that gentleman remains in jail. But it does underline the problem we have. We will continue to work in a collaborative effort to ensure the rights of the accused are protected and support the efforts of the court and the Office of Public Defense to recruit and retain more attorneys. We recognize the challenges in hiring attorneys for public service, both for the Office of Public Defense and shortages in prosecutors' offices statewide. The prosecution of felony crimes are crimes against the state laws, and we prosecute on behalf of the state of Washington. We support efforts to have the state provide the financial resources that we will need to continue to do so. I've been a public servant first in Larry's office as a public defender for 9 years or so, and then as a prosecutor for another 4 or 5 years. I would just invite anyone who might be interested in the field of public service and has a Juris Doctorate to consider applying. It's an incredibly gratifying career, but that's not going to be enough. I think this ARPA funding being transferred, as mentioned earlier, is a Band-Aid that will not continue to hold forever. So we ask for assistance from the state, perhaps from the governor's office, the legislature, to do something to both standardize and help fund public defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. And I want to bring up Sheriff Jim Raymond.
A crisis is defined as an unstable or crucial time or state of affairs in which a decisive change is pending. Symptoms of a crisis are a sign of an existence of something, especially of an undesirable situation. Allow me to provide you with some symptoms. Office of Public Defense can't find attorneys to represent the criminals. Prosecutors' offices can't remotely remain staffed to address court backlog or introduce new cases into the system. Our courts are turning criminals loose to prey upon law-abiding citizens because of the above. Staffing shortages in law enforcement are at an all-time high. Communication and dispatchers in our regions are feeling the pinch too, at a 40% unoccupied full-time positions in this field. We have ever-increasing violent crime. Homelessness is at an all-time high. We have people laying in our streets out of their minds, preying upon our citizens in order to reach a better high, and a better high, and a better high. Our media sources are reporting murder after murder in these communities here. It's kind of like it's just another day in the land of anarchy. Some call this progress. I call it stupidity. I call it a failure of our community leaders to take decisive action to ensure our community remains a distinct place where law-abiding people can enjoy a secure and safe quality of life. To my community, I pose you a few questions. Is our community in crisis? Is our community safety at risk? Is our families at risk? What is the community's role going to be in solving these community safety and crisis issues? For a community to live their lives in reasonable safety, we need to address the symptoms in order to solve the problems. To our community leaders, politicians, elected officials, get involved, address these symptoms and problems now. Personal safety, family safety, and community safety is paramount in order for our families to enjoy a safe and secure quality of life. Now is the time to explore what is the real problem. Why are these problems existing? And how do we fix them?
Thank you, Sheriff Jim Raymond, for those comments. Really appreciate it. Now we're going to hear from our partners over across the river in Benton County. And, Prosecuting Attorney Eric Eisenker is going to be first.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you for this opportunity to address what has become, I think, our most pressing public safety issue in our community. I am the new Benton County prosecutor. I was elected last fall and took office in January of this year. And as of the present in Benton County, we have 51 cases that are currently pending that are on the OPD waiting list. So what that means is that the court has appointed the Office of Public Defense, but there have not been any assigned attorneys to actually take on these cases. And that creates a huge concern, obviously, for the work that we're doing. I think I have a unique perspective on this situation. I was a prosecutor prior to being elected into office. I've also spent 12 years in private practice as a criminal defense attorney. So I understand both sides of this equation. I want to recognize in my county all of the hard work that's been done by Michael Alvarez, one of our commissioners, and our other elected commissioners who have really stepped up and committed a lot of additional funding through the public safety tax to address this problem. Their work has been remarkable. I want you to keep this in mind. Our criminal justice system requires checks and balances. The system only works if you have all the pieces in place, and that means prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, officers, corrections officers. All of these places need to be filled in order for the system to properly work and for it to do the job that it's intended to do. To use a sports analogy, my team is on the floor, but my team has to have somebody to play against. And that's the problem that we're facing right now, is we are unable to prosecute crime unless we have individuals who are going to step up and take on the mantle of doing public defense work. Public defense work is an incredibly difficult line of work, but it can also be very rewarding in terms of helping people through crisis. My outlook on this is that I was elected by the people of Benton County to deal with a problem that we've all seen as we've driven through our own communities. I was not elected to take a back seat, and I will commit to the residents of Benton County that I will not be a release valve for this problem. I was elected to do a job. There is rising crime in our communities, and the victims of crime in Benton County are depending and looking at my office to take their cases and to handle them appropriately and to do the right thing. People in crisis who are living on the street need our attention. They need us to be involved in their situations and do the right thing. Now is not a time where we can take our foot off the gas. Now is a time to pay attention and to address these problems. I am building an office. I am hiring prosecutors. I am working with law enforcement. And in Benton County, we need my counterpart, the Office of Public Defense Manager, to do the exact same thing. And that is one of the most pressing needs that we have currently in Benton County. We need a new public defense manager who will build an office, who will create an office culture, who will recruit new public defenders, and who will create an office culture where public defenders want to stay in practice. I'm very optimistic that that's going to happen. I think it is going to happen, but it is going to take a community and a statewide effort. This is something that is going to require collaboration. This is something that I think that we need to be talking about as a community, that we need people to step up to the plate and take on this position of public service, either as the OPD manager or in a public defense role, because this is exactly what is needed for our community right now. It's meaningful work, helping people through difficulty. It's meaningful work, being a part of having a functional justice system. So I appreciate your opportunity again, the opportunity again to speak to you all here today, and I look forward to watching the progress as we all work and pull on this together to finding a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate those kind words, and I just really want to let everyone on YouTube and out there know how collaboratively really the counties work together, and there is really an interdependence on one another. I want to bring up a good friend of mine I've known for many years now, now one of the commissioners at Benton County, Michael Alvarez.
Thank you all for being here. I was supposed to be at a pension, police and fire pension board, but Mr. Gonzalez went ahead and contacted me yesterday morning, and I thought it was important to go ahead and be here because this is a very critical issue that we're facing right now. I just got back into town, been on the road. I kind of wrote some notes this morning, so I'm going to read some of the information. Then after that, I'll go ahead and talk about some of the things that Benton County is looking at doing here in the future. I'm going to put on my glasses, a little foggy from being on the road and getting up early. So your Benton County Commissioners understand the gravity of the current shortages within the Office of Public Defense and across the criminal justice system. That is true statewide. The very large bottleneck and backlog of cases resulting from the court closures in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed the court system to its breaking point. Working with our partners in the courts, your Benton County Commissioners have been making investments to improve the process by bolstering staff and improving technologies. In 2020, Benton County Commissioners allocated over $5 million in funding to complete technology and upgrades in all Benton County courtrooms and the county jail to allow remote participation by attorneys and their clients. Additionally, over $630,000 was funded in 2021 and 2022 budget for Superior Court, County Clerk, Prosecuting Attorney, and the public defense needs. Benton County Commissioners further earmarked over $2.7 million in additional ARPA funds during the 2023 and 2024 budget cycle to address court needs as well. Increases in expenditures for the public safety sales tax has also been approved to fund the Office of Public Defense and other court-related activities. We recently worked very hard we really worked hard on and trying to figure out how we can attract more public defense attorneys. So we went ahead and put a competitive wage and compensation package to attract more public defenders to join Benton County and the Office of Public Defense. This is a very expensive, and I'm known to be here locally. I just got into office. I was city councilman for the city of Richland, the mayor of the city of Richland, and now, as of January 1st, a Benton County commissioner, and I've been known in the public to be pretty strong in the financial sector. We've done the financial things, what we can go ahead and do. But as Commissioner Didier did say, the funding isn't guaranteed from year to year. And I can say that as someone that's been in finance for over 30 years. We're going to need help. We're going to need help from the state. And so one of the takeaways I'm asking for is state legislators, state senators in collaboration, working all together along with the governor's office to look at this critical issue and help fund the counties statewide. This isn't just a Franklin County or a Benton County issue. This is affecting all 39 counties within the state, and we need that additional funding for this. And I would not say that if I didn't think it was necessary. I've also personally spoken and worked with our Benton County Commissioner, Eric Eisinger, on we've met at least a dozen times on this issue, if not more, in the last month and a half. And we've worked hard. I've kind of did my homework, and I wanted to ask, what does it take to be a public defender? What are the needs? And so I think part of the culture that Eric mentioned was getting an OPD manager there and creating a culture where we have more staff public defenders. Right now, a lot of them are contract attorneys, and the amount of cases they can take, I think it's 155 cases. Is that correct? 150? And so we've made it also not only a wage and compensation package, but we've also tried to do a little bit of flexibility when I talk to my staff and our finance manager, saying, hey, if there's a private sector attorney out there that may not want to take 150 cases in a year, because that's what they're limited to, maybe they'll be willing to take in their spare time, or if they have additional time, 30 cases. So we're trying to be flexible. We're trying to be creative on what we're doing to go ahead and get more of these cases done. I think another issue, and like I said, I'm kind of just coming back into town here, is I think everyone deserves a good representation, fair and speedy trial. I'm not an attorney, so I'm asking the judges and the state to look at, this is not normal times. There's a huge bottleneck in our criminal justice system and our court system right now. And there's not enough public defense attorneys. And so if we can go ahead and extend the timeout, I don't know if that's legally possible, but we certainly should be able to look at that. From the time someone is incarcerated to the time of their trial date, there's a specific period of time right now. If we can get that extended out so that court cases can be tried, that would be a huge benefit in the interim while we're working through this process. So I think extending times out, if that's possible, because of the lack of public defense attorneys right now, we're all trying to work together on that, as well as funding from the state for this issue. And it's going to be, and I think one of the public defenders that has spoke right before myself, a few people before me, also brought up that smaller counties are going to have issues too, because the lack of funding. We're certainly doing our part in Benton County. I know Franklin County is working on their part, and if we can go ahead and collaborate in any way we can. But I know it's going to put a strain even on the smaller counties, because we're trying to recruit, just like everybody else is within our office and stuff. So I know that Commissioner McKay, Commissioner Delvin, and myself, seriously, we take this issue very seriously. We're being very proactive, as you can kind of see some of the things that have been happening in prior years for some of the funding, and we will continue to work very hard on this issue and everything we can go ahead and do here at the county level, but we're asking for state officials to work with us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate those words. And we've talked a lot about the state throughout this process. And I mean, we're really fortunate to have what I consider some of the best state legislators in the entire state, really collaborative, willing to work across the aisle. And I do want to welcome them to speak. And we've got Senator Nikki Torres, we've got Representative Stephanie Barnard, and we have Senator Matt Banky. All due respect, Senator, I'm gonna have the ladies talk first. You know, I know how you roll, so I'm sure you wouldn't have it any other way, but I did want to make that clear. So I'm going to invite Senator Torres up to speak first.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me okay. I'll lower that because I'm a little shorter than everybody else. But Nikki Torres, State Senator for the 15th Legislative District. Thank you all for being here, and I loved seeing all the collaboration. And it sounds, the message is the same resounding message, you know, as you heard Mr. Ziegler speak as well. The west side, you know, is different than the east side of the state, for sure. And a lot of the legislature that is passed is catered more for the west side of the state. And so when that legislature passes, you know, it becomes an unfunded mandate, especially for the east side, where we already have a major shortage of prosecuting and public defenders, and we're seeing all these caseloads. And, you know, unfortunately, you're hearing that message of they're having to be released because there's a timeline. There's a state timeline where, you know, the offender is being released because they didn't have enough attorneys to take care of those cases. And who it's going to affect the most is going to be our communities, and it's going to be our crime victims as well. So that's the unfortunate piece. But oops, sorry, let me open up my notes. So when you don't have enough defense attorneys or enough prosecutors, it is very difficult to respond to the criminal cases. Obviously, without enough attorneys, prosecutors can't file the charges and can't try the cases, and can't manage therapeutic courts either. So that's another issue. Prosecutors have to manage the resources, and without enough attorneys, they have to prioritize certain cases, as we've been hearing. They also have to decline more cases, which, again, as mentioned, that's going to affect our crime victims and our communities. And with fewer prosecutors, we have less time to work on alternative resolutions and less time to respond to the victim concerns and or to negotiate resolutions with defense. So with that, you know, I am happy to help and collaborate with our local officials, and it's so great to see the collaboration between the counties and the local governments. That is definitely a great starting point. Another thing I want to highlight too, in the state's operating budget, I know it hasn't been officially signed yet, but there was $2.5 million for a 2-year period that was set aside for the Lower Snake River Dam study, another study. I could think of better ways where we could use that $2.5 million, and that would be this reason here that we're all here together for, is one great way where we could utilize those funds. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Senator Torres. I'll lift this up a little bit. I know Representative Barnard is a little bit taller than you, and I'll set that stage, but wanted to welcome Stephanie Barnard, who longtime Pasco resident and Franklin County resident, and representing us now, so we're very happy about that.
Thank you so much, Mike. I am deeply concerned about what's happening. Our criminal justice system is ineffective in the current state that it's in. We do need more support. This is a constitutional issue. This is the Fourth Amendment right to due process is being infringed upon. All of those charged with crimes do deserve due process. They're being deprived of that, but we're also, as a community, being deprived of the safety of the protection of law. Ineffective criminal justice systems equal lawlessness. That's what it equals, and that's what we're experiencing in our communities every single day. Yesterday, I went out with Officer Pruneda from the Pasco Police Department. I was with him for over 3 hours. We went around to the communities, to different sections of this community in Pasco, and I was introduced to 15 to 20 different addicts. Had an opportunity to talk to them face to face, ask them the problems that they were dealing with, and how we could help them. Officer Pruneda and I encountered 3 individuals that were actively smoking fentanyl in use with paraphernalia in full open to the public. This is right here on our streets. This is happening every single day, all day long. And when you can buy fentanyl for $10 a pill, we have a crisis. We have a crisis that's being unaddressed, and it's affecting the safety of every single one of us. This isn't a victimless crime. We're all victims of the lack and the lawlessness that's prevalent in our state today. We do need to have a crackdown. We do need to fix Blake. It was our very top priority as legislators going into this session, and we ended up having to vote no on the fix because it was completely toothless. There was nothing there. There was nothing substantive that would stop and prevent and help addicts from continuing to use in public. We've got to change. We have to have funding for additional defense attorneys. We have to have additional funding for our prosecutor's office. We have to incentivize those to come to work in Benton and Franklin counties. So these things need to change, and we are actively pursuing the money for this effort. Just a couple other things I wanted to, I got locked out of my phone, so I'm not going to take the time to do that. But I will let Senator Binky pick up the slack and pick up what we haven't discussed. But just want to say that if we think there is not a crisis, then just look around. Just open your eyes to what's happening in our communities, and you'll see it. We've got to address this issue, and we'll work tirelessly to make sure that happens for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Barnard. Very powerful words. Really appreciate it. And I want to invite to the podium now Senator Matt Benke.
Thank you all for being here, and again, thanks for having us. Matt Binke, State Senator from the Legislative District in the 8th, now encompassing Benton and Franklin counties. So want to be clear about that did have redistricting between Benton and Franklin counties. Having grown up in Benton County, it means a lot to me to have a safe community, to mean a lot to me to walk our streets, to be able to go out in our parks, in our communities, to showcase what we can to the places what we have and we continue to do. Increasing the number of attorneys in our counties will have those several benefits that we mentioned before, whether it's the funding in our streets, but considering to make sure our legislative process is down at the local level and the jurisdictions of our legal system are handled properly at our local level, from our prosecuting attorneys all the way through the defense of our legal rights, of our freedoms, this nation. As a veteran, it means a lot to me to make sure that we uphold the Constitution of the United States, and we'd mentioned before of what those mean throughout. And when you see this at the state level, when priorities coming into a session or even a budgetary process, where a lot of people say that we're going after that community safety, but where people come back to us and say, where's the money coming from? Where's your money going to be actioning there? And we have these debates at the state level. Money starts going into bills like 5599 that tear our parents away from our kids, that go after the family core unit that is slowly being eroded throughout our society. And it comes to the point to where we need to stand tall with our citizens to say we want to have our families back together. We include each and every one of those in our communities. We make sure it starts with the parents being involved in our education system, being involved in our communities, to understanding how to raise our children, the next generation, the proper way. Community safety also includes what we mentioned about the Blake decision. In the Senate, we had a fairly well compromised decision being made. That included funding that came out of there, and Senator Torres and I were on the floor fighting with this to push back against some of the people that said we didn't want to be too harsh. We wanted to allow an opportunity to go into the care, the therapeutic courts, and the systems that we have maintained out here. We have an opportunity to continue to elaborate on the KGH solution across the street or across the river that we put money into. I know Senator Brown is probably listening in. Her great work prior to me getting up here, $5 million 2 years ago. We had additional funding this year that went into that. We're fighting in the courts to make sure that's legalized and get it out to our recovery center so our law enforcement can go ahead and take that off their shoulders to make sure we can get them back out on the streets to ensure they're doing their jobs to help the system as well. It is an all-encompassing system that works from the top down, but also the bottom up. So the citizens that are out there listening to it today that know this is our top priority, that know that we're going to fight for each and every dime that we can get after this. We're going to do this now, and then we have an opportunity in this special session coming up to where we can leverage a lot of the additional funding, the couple measures that we already looking into. When I was told of this, Mike, again, I appreciate you and Commissioner Didier, as well as others who have reached out to us about this concerns. To get our staffs involved, they're standing by, they're waiting for us to go ahead and work across the state level to see what we can get right now, but also looking into the long-term plan that you mentioned. Can't thank Benton County enough, Eric, as well as Commissioner Alvarez, for what you guys are doing there right now, and the cities of the Tri-Cities out there that are working together to help us, because this is a team effort. We are one team in this fight. We want to make sure we understand to each and every one of you out there that this is our top priority, and we will continue to fight to get all we can to solve this issue. Thanks, Mike.
Well, that wraps up all our speakers. I'm going to open it up to Q&A. So, and who I'd like up here, Eric would be great, Larry, the two commissioners, and Daniel. They can take some questions from the media. And before I go, I want to thank everybody for coming and just really the collaborative nature of this. Our state lawmakers, thanks so much. And you know, I'm on the Commission for Hispanic Affairs. I also had a chance to speak to the executive director this morning. So this is certainly on the governor's radar. And you know, it's a state issue, it's a city issue, it's a county issue, so everybody needs to get involved to solve this, but I think this is a great first step. So I'll have these folks just kind of surround us, and you know, if you guys call an individual, they can come up to the podium. So that's how we'll work this.
I had a question, probably for Larry, more than anything else, but Franklin County is facing a problem right now. I'm kind of wondering what's going on outside of perhaps diverting more money into the public defense system to solve the problem right now. I mean, did you guys have people lined up for interviews? You guys
No.
have, so,
No.
I mean, how much worse is this going to get?
A lot worse before it gets better. It could get a lot worse before it gets better. I mean, I'm not going to stand here and tell everybody that I've got all the answers or that there's any panacea, even if we did this collaborative effort. It's not going to get solved overnight. I mean, it's taken us years to get to this point, and it's probably going to take us years to get out of it. It's going to be an incremental process. I mean, I don't think this legislature is going to wave a wand and solve it. I know the state Supreme Court isn't going to wave a wand. Nor do I think the governor's office is going to wave a wand, since he's a short-timer now. There are so many different facets as to what has caused the bottom line that we're facing today. We're always trying to recruit, but you have to remember, recruiting, it's like any job market. The person with the most money is going to have the built-in advantage. And I have to compete against Benton County because the only thing that separates us is a bridge. It's the same labor pool. And if I don't have the money to compete, I don't begrudge the people that choose to go to Benton because they can make a lot more money, particularly those that have a lot of school loans to pay off. They've got a wife and kids. They want to buy a house. You don't begrudge people that. There's days you want to go home and wish you had a dog to kick. But that's not going to solve it either. This meeting today, this is the part where we all talk with each other. But I think eventually we're going to have some sessions where we're going to be talking at each other. And we're really going to have to sit down and say, hey, it's time for hardball here. This is what's going on. This is who needs to do this part. This is who's got to do this part. This is who's going to play this role. Don't come with excuses. If you can't do it, tell us in advance, I can't do it. I don't have it. And let's not waste any more time using buzzwords and trying to make each other feel better when we know the end result's going to be, the problem's going to be right there where we started, or it's going to be worse. I just can't overemphasize that enough.
How many attorneys do you guys need to be fully staffed?
I'd like to have at least 4 felony, but now it looks like I'm going to be down to 2.
Mr. Ziegler, will you tell them about the hirees, that you cannot hire a new
I can't hire,
graduate?
if I use the same hypothetical all the time, if you have A and B both go to law school together, they graduate together, they take the state bar exam together, they have no experience, they've just gone to school, but now they're out there in the job market. Mr. Stollern's office can hire either one of them, and I can't touch either one of them, because the state Supreme Court and the State Bar Association have fastened these qualifications on the defense side of the equation. So I can't compete. Even if I had the money, I can't. And I've had that happen more than once, where I had the money, but I have to tell somebody, I can't hire you. I simply can't do it. I've tried to get some of the NGOs over on the other side, the west side. Why don't you go to the state Supreme Court? You promulgated these emergency rules. That means you have the power to give us an emergency fix, at least a short-term fix, and maybe we could recruit somebody to help us get through this backlog. And the answer is no. It's always no. So what I'm saying is, I mean, let's talk with each other today, but the time's coming when talk's not going to do it anymore, and things are going to have to get notched up a little bit, I'm afraid.
Do you mind if I go ahead and expand on one of those issues? One of those questions, the first question you asked. So what we're looking at doing at Benton County, a lot of the attorneys right now on the OPD side are contract attorneys. We're going to try to take another approach. We're going to have, obviously, contract attorneys, but also what we're trying to do, and I think our county prosecutor said it right, we're looking at attracting an OPD manager that understands that culture, what it takes to go ahead and be a public defender, recruit, retain, and keep them as staff. We're really going to practice on keeping a lot of the public defenders as staff, on-staff Benton County employees. And I think we do that and retain it and create a culture, just like they do in the prosecutor's office. I think we're going to have a little bit better luck. And we're searching out for public defenders as well, obviously, like everybody else. But I think we're going to go in the manner of looking for staff versus just contract attorneys. And would you agree with that? In creating a culture that you have, what you're creating within the prosecutor's office. I think if we do that, we're going to go ahead and have some more retention if we can create that quality of work environment. Thank you.
And, sorry, I apologize. I'm sorry I'm hitting you with all the questions. Are you guys still at 80 cases in the backlog? Are you guys still at 80 cases in the backlog?
76 as of today.
76. And what's the oldest? Like, I know you had that.
That I don't have.
Okay.
I've got 25 in custody, 52 out of custody, 8 are on warrant status. The ones that were in custody, 8 are violent, 16 are nonviolent. Out of custodies are 6 violent and 46 nonviolent. Of course, it's not even 12 o'clock yet, so call me at 3 o'clock.
You always change. I mean, I guess the question is, how many more folks are going to get let go or released?
I don't know.
So
I don't-
I apologize. I don't mean let go like they're not, like I don't want to.
I just budgeted yesterday $100,000 on 4 homicides.
You guys still have 3 contracted homicide attorneys, or is it 2?
2.
And you know, one of the things what I think is important too, and I think we talked about that, Eric, was the technology within the jail and the access to WebEx and stuff so that attorneys can go ahead and meet at least virtually from wherever they're at. If it's a contract attorney and they're on the west side or here or Yakima or whatever, they can go ahead and meet with their client to kind of help expedite that process a little bit more. So we're trying to invest in that technology so we're not, so since we're limited to that period of time, we're working on those things to be able to proactive as well. We need to go ahead and share that with our counterparts here in Franklin County and the commissioners here, we're going to do whatever we need to go ahead and do that as well.
So adding to that, we've already worked a lot through Chair Rankin as Human Services. Senator Dozier pushed out a bill a couple years ago and it got vetoed twice. Didn't even get a hearing this time. Sure. Sorry. Senator Benke, talking about Senator Dozier put out a bill about correcting the software in the Department of Corrections that actually had the sentencing guidelines that you were referring to. Software failed and actually allowed a lot of the criminal elements to get out early and into the streets. He's pushed money in a budget a line item to get that through, did not get through this session. We're fighting for that with Senator Torres, myself, on law and justice, and we were just discussing on that as well. We have a couple options that we already were talking about. You want to discuss some of those?
So this has been a great opportunity for myself and Senator Benke to really brainstorm together while we were sitting here and listening to everybody and all the ideas and the problems that you know are brought to light. So one of the things that we were discussing was incentivizing law-seeking students or criminal justice programs as well to help fill that pool. Also creating a task force statewide to study the issue that's going on, because I think that's going to really help and open up the eyes on the west side, because, you know, like was mentioned earlier, these unfunded mandates really affect the east side of the state when they're passed. And also allowing, again, that was mentioned, you know, allowing the cross collaboration with attorneys via online to help those that need that public defense as well. So looking forward to collaborating more.
And I would add that as a technologist, I'm happy to hear somebody else is bringing up technology, because I think we can. We got to start looking at what the future of the criminal justice system is, and we have some bright minds, smarter than I am up here. But as educators, that Senator Torres and I come from that field of academia, we can leverage the opportunity of getting the workforce into this process, speed up the throughput with active keeping and retaining of the quality instructors, the professors at our law schools around the state as well. But that task force, including, and then looking at other counties, and I know we've had programs in the past that we've reached out to other counties and other jurisdictions that may not have as high of a workload for an interim time period to get them to come in to kind of do in the military, we kind of had a rush team that would come in and flex during a time of crisis or a time that we can to get that additional support, and then maybe offset that with some other funding and things that we can do at the state as well. So just wanted to highlight some of that while you were talking, Cameron, and just kind of prepped us in the back there, so I thought we'd jump in the middle. So
Ms. Benke, just a question for you and Senator Torres. Is there any chance that the state is going to step in immediately with something? I mean, is there any chance that we could get a declaration of emergency?
yeah, that is the first thing we talked about. So we're going to meet with our staff today. I already met with Senator Torres about getting that, and we would like to combine that with Senator Dozier, just because he's a part of the Tri-City area as well. Couldn't make it today, but between the three of us, it has a lot more, I guess, firepower when you're going into the governor's office with this. I know Senator Patton already is aware of this as the lead on the criminal justice for the Senate Rs. We're going to reach out to the majority party as well. Anytime you go into special session, a lot of people don't understand this. We want to focus on the Blake decision because that's our priority. That has been loud and clear from everybody across the state. But there's opportunities within that we can expand some of the special session. We're having meetings this afternoon to try to finalize the negotiation of what that special session is, and there's opportunities within that to look at that funding model you're talking about, to look at some of the other contingencies so we can have a better idea. We don't have anything now, but maybe early next week, sometime then we can get back to everybody and get that announcement out there. Nikki, do you want to add to that?
No, I'm looking forward to that, as well as, you know, just to reiterate what Senator Benke mentioned. You know, serving on the Law and Justice Committee, it's been a great eye-opener, and working with Senator Patton as the lead, that was the resounding message that we kept hearing during committee hearings as well, was that we didn't have enough public defenders and prosecuting attorneys. So definitely looking forward to getting that passed as soon as we can possibly do so.
Cameron, if I could just follow up on, I guess, a couple of the comments by Senator Benke and Senator Torres. So we all see the concern regarding people living on the street and homelessness and drug use. Representative Barner spoke to that just a few minutes ago. But I want to kind of bring my perspective as not only the current elected prosecutor for Benton County, but also a former criminal defense attorney, just to speak to what criminal defense attorneys do when somebody is homeless and in a crisis and something happens and they're arrested. It's the public defense attorney, or it's the defense attorney that is the one that is having the hard conversations in jail or at their office and going through police reports and discussing what happened in a particular situation and is discussing what is going on in this particular person's life. And they're in a unique position to speak some truth and to show some compassion and to address things that only defense attorneys can address behind closed doors. I've had countless conversations like that. So there, in terms of our need to address, I think one of the most pressing issues that we have right now, which is the drug use that we see on the street and people in crisis, we have got to have public defense attorneys who are going to play that role, who are going to have the tough conversations and walk along the person who's in crisis and show the compassion and speak the truth and work through the situation for a better life outcome, because ultimately that's what we all want to see, right? We want to see these folks get the help that they need so that they can get out of the criminal justice system, not commit crime, so that they're getting help and healing and our community is safe. Well, I can, there's a few different directions this could go, but I think everyone is aware that local jurisdictions across the state are considering some kind of local fix by way of an ordinance on a county or a city level. That is in consideration. Obviously, we're all, highly anticipating what's going to come out of this next legislative session that starts on Monday. We're all very hopeful that we can come up with a good, workable, collaborative fix that will address the situation and provide people with meaningful help. That needs to happen. It needs to happen for our communities, for safety in our community. It needs to happen with for people who are struggling and living on the street. So I would anticipate, to answer your question, that there would likely be local ordinances enacted across the state if no legislation was enacted at a state level.
And I'll just add that last meeting, we introduced that in Franklin County, looking at Everett's ordinance and some others, city ordinances, and we're going to probably adopt one as commissioners for Franklin County to let our law enforcement have more authority.
I would add, from the state level, our number one is to fix the problem. And so we did, like was mentioned at the Senate and working with the House members, try to get that. And that's our priority in the Senate. But I know Association of Washington Cities, the county association as well, they've all been kind of keeping in touch with us. We've been reaching out to the sheriffs, our community leaders, not only in law enforcement, but others, of making sure what and if that happens, we are prepared to make sure we have a local option as well. So I appreciate the comments by everybody here today.
So, we just met yesterday as the police chiefs and sheriffs, prosecutors, to discuss the ordinance. Ordinances are prepared. They're just they're being tweaked right now, for a lack of better words. Everett seems to have put out the best ordinance. Kennewick already has an ordinance. Richland already has an ordinance that they've been using, and it appears to be effective. So what you have to remember is, no matter what the state does with an RCW or a law, you can enact a local ordinance so long as it's not greater than. And that's kind of the pace that we're on, is to create ordinances that either going to mirror what the state does, or if the state doesn't vote correctly, then we're going to be ready to go to enact those ordinances July 1, I believe it is. So there's coordination that's taking place. For Franklin County, the law enforcement officers would prefer that when we launch that ordinance, that it comes into our district court, because we can better work with the people's court on these type of issues than any other ways. So we're going to be pretty insistent that it goes into our district courtroom with that ordinance when we enact it, if that helps you with the question.
been told as legislators that that could most likely be a non-starter as far as negotiations. So they does want something that blankets, and then you can. But that's the goal, and I've spoken directly with the prosecutors in both Franklin and Benton County. I've spoken with the prosecutors in both Benton and Franklin County just on the Blake decision and what their needs might be. And so we're in direct communication with them as we decide how to vote, and we have that connection with our local community and what they need. So we're constantly in communication with law enforcement and in our prosecuting attorneys to make sure that we're working in coordination with their needs and wants. The other thing that that Senator Torres and Senator Binky brought up, we do also, if they can add this to their list of things to do, is to make sure that we're looking at the qualifications for those defense attorneys that take the felony cases, to make sure that they are not too high. If we can have prosecutors with not that much experience on felonies working the same cases as the defense attorneys with not that much experience with felony cases, that should be the same. We shouldn't have different qualifications for the same linear role. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Questions from the media? I know it's getting kind of long. Questions, we can maybe one more. All right, thank you. If you guys could stay here, I would like to get a picture with all of us, just to kind of memorialize this.
Stand next to Albert.
Good to see you, Megan. Yeah, you too. I know it's nice. Great comments. Yeah.
Got bad numbers in that story.
I wore my